folks. Happy Friday and welcome to the Freedom from the Press podcast. My name is Jason Robertson. I'm here with my partner in crime,
Todd Peterson. Thanks for joining us again. Jason, the weeks go fast. Here we are again, Friday morning, and a lot to talk about. And gosh, we've covered a lot of topics. I think today is the day Facebook might actually say you've gone too far this time. You're not allowed to talk about Springfield, which is exactly what we're going to do for the whole hour, folks, because there is so much to dive into.
Oh my gosh. Well, and spoiler alert, for those who do watch, listen to our podcast, thanks for the support. Todd's actually going to be going daily with a podcast here in the next 60 days. Because we're finding that when we just go once a week, there's too much that happens in between. And I'm actually currently I do the Wayne Dupree podcast Monday through Thursday. Todd's going to do a solo one here for a few days, and we're going to figure out where we might go every other day or that kind of thing. But give some encouragement to Todd, because it is brave doing a podcast by yourself or getting into this, putting your ugly mug on the interwebs.
Mug voice. There's nothing attractive about what we're going to do, but we're going to have fun doing it.
Absolutely. And when we were talking about what we had to go over this week, the story of Springfield really fits with Freedom from the Press podcast. And when we started this podcast, really what it came down to is we saw the lies that were being promulgated in the media, and it made us mad because people that just casually consume the brainwashing CNN, MSNBC, and this just in, same thing holds true with Fox News. But these medias would spin this narrative and it would make people silly. I wanted to use the R word, Todd, but I thought of your wife. I better not use the R word. And we wanted to help try to bring the real story for what was happening to our audience. And Todd, what are your thoughts on that?
Now you got me going in a lot of different directions. I always think back to the conversation I had. Folks, you can go back in time. I had this political discussion at a 5-year-old's birthday party because I am that guy. But when he found out what I did, he got mad at me for spreading misinformation. And I just asked him, where do you get your news from? He votes Democrat in Minnesota, like they all do in Minnesota. Nice people, but politically stupid. And he said CNN, and I'm like, CNN? And you just got to shake your head. Jason, we did clips this morning. We got articles up on the American Tribune. CNN had to admit that the bloodbath hoax was just that, a hoax. Donald Trump was not talking about political retribution in the streets, and so CNN had to admit on air that that was the case. We've debunked Charlottesville. That's been debunked from day one, but people still believe it. Joe Biden launched his campaign. Kamala Harris repeated it at the debates. Charlottesville is not a thing. He didn't say there were fine people on both sides. And if there were a lie in that statement, it's that there were fine people on Antifa. There are 0 fine people in Antifa. So that's my complaint with Donald Trump's statement. They covered up Joe Biden's senility, like CNN, on and on and on. So, folks, we rag on CNN. Jason said the same thing. Fox has an angle, too. There's a bias there, too. We want to break free of all biases, but sometimes we've just got to break through to our Democrat voting friends and family members. Like, you watch CNN. You are about as far away from truth as possible. So we're going to cover Springfield today because we know they don't know anything that's going on there.
Yeah, so here's what the mainstream media tells you about Springfield. Todd, should we start with they're eating the cats clip?
We love this clip here. Apologies as we set this up. I think we ended the show last week with this clip, and this is, well, we'll talk more about the video in a second too, because the person behind the video is also hilarious.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. Yeah! And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame.
I worked out.
They're eating the dogs.
I could do this all day. This might be the hour podcast, just this song.
Oh my God, I love this guy.
Oh, I love Jason too, that he is a leftist. He loves Democrats. He loves Ukraine. He loves Hamas and all this. They're all insane and crazy, but they're great at making coffee. They're great at mixing songs. But this guy tried to take down the video because he thought he was dumping on Trump with this. And it's our new anthem. Like, this song is fantastic. It's hilarious. He had no idea what he was doing. And it just reminds you that the left cannot meme.
Right. All right. So let's explore the Springfield story. So 2 weeks ago, before the debate or whatever day it was, stories were coming out of Haitians eating dogs and cats in Springfield, Ohio. Donald Trump, it was going around and everybody's like, oh, these stories aren't true, rah, rah, rah. Donald Trump then brought it up at the debate. After the debate, it went nuclear. Like, and this guy made the greatest video ever of their eating dogs and cats. But should we show the audience, to refresh your memory, Todd, what they brought up on the debate?
I clarify here, you bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
the people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
television.
But the
people on television saying their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
Todd?
I mean, number one here, let me go back to the beginning here, Jason, because this is what I know.
Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out.
He is reading from a prepared statement. ABC moderators went into the debate knowing that that would get said because they asked the questions and prompted it. They knew what Donald Trump would say, and they already had a fact check ready to go. This is not mere in real time. Like, hold on, Donald Trump, I got to pause you here. Like, no, they were ready, guns a-blazing to make sure Donald Trump was put in his place, and ignorant voters out there were like, oh, Donald Trump's lying again. From the beginning, this was a planned intervention by ABC.
I was going to say, very well said, and that's what's stuck out to me, folks. We try to tell people how the media is manipulative and how they have an agenda. So this story started gaining traction like 2 or 3 days before the debate. And at the debate, they now notice too, ABC News, who's one of the biggest investigative journalist organizations in the world, right? That's why they're hosting a debate. They did such extensive research that they called the city manager. Like, that was like Todd or I could have done that. Like, we don't work for a multi-billion-dollar news organization. So all they did, they knew it was going to come up. They called the city manager, which, by the way, we found the clips later on in the podcast. And they said, nope, Donald Trump. And at what point is this debate? So this was a premeditated hit by ABC. This was, they had let Kamala know it was going down, because if you watch her reaction, Muir, like a debate moderator, should not be inserting themselves in a debate. Like, it's Kamala's job to try to refute that, not ABC News. And it turns out, it looks like they're lying to you.
Yeah. All they had to do, let's say that every city has 2 monthly meetings. You just got to go watch the clips. You could probably search keywords in the transcript. It'll take you half an hour to easily debunk the story. But no, David Muir says, we spoke to them. That's not true. But Jason, it seems like one of these clips would suggest otherwise. Should we play that one?
Yes, we should.
And, culture is 180 degrees different of what they're used to. And one of the things that I heard that bothered me very much, I've actually had quite a few people contact me here lately, is some pretty horrid things occurring to domesticated animals in the neighborhood. We've had some stuff in the park that, again, they're being taken advantage of for reasons other than, and if you shake your head, Brian.
No. I asked me if there was proof. I just don't have proof of it.
I have the same thing. People that have confided in me have asked me for anonymity. I can't give their names up.
I mean, we haven't seen the proof that you're telling me. And
we need proof. Where's your evidence?
So let's put this in perspective, folks. And then I got to get to a couple of the comments here too. So Springfield City Commissioner meeting, March 12th, 2024. This is a public access video that any news organization could have. The guy testifying is the Springfield city manager. Now, David Muir said he called and talked to the Springfield city manager. Now, in March, there were reports coming in from citizens. He was hearing from citizens that this was happening. People didn't have specifics. They didn't have any of that. And if you look at the indifference of the city council, instead of like, let's have a task force to look into this, or do we need to do law enforcement patrols to find out? They're like, where's your proof? To the city manager. City managers there going, hey guys, I'm hearing this is a problem. You might want to do something. and they're like, where's your proof? It's like arguing with any leftist.
How about we go find proof? How about you go stand in the streets with police officers or go knock on doors and just say, hey, is that a cat on the barbecue in the backyard? Like, why don't we go seek this information out instead of wholesale denying it? Kind of reminds me of something that happened in 2022 or 2020, Jason, where no proof. Where's your proof? Courts dismissed all of this. It's safe and secure.
Right.
We don't want to find out what's going on.
We want to find out what's going on. And now just go through a few comments here. Shout out to Fally. David Muir is a tool. Thanks for tuning in. And I do got to say, too, Fally's over on Rumble, which brings me to Petro Garza's comment. Love to share your post, but Facebook warns us that we'll be banned from Facebook. Where are the lawsuits against freedom of speech? So, Petro, I hope I pronounced your name right. Fally's a longtime viewer. He's watched me on Wayne Dupree sometimes, came over to Freedom from the Press with Todd and I. He made the move over to Rumble. So today's a prime example because the last half hour of the show, we do Rumble only. And we're going to dive into a little Haiti stuff. We're going to dive into a little Springfield stuff. And it's things that if we shared these videos on Facebook, they would nuke our account. And to be honest, we're talking about this thing. This is a city manager meeting. It is an unedited clip. It is an unedited clip of what David Muir says. We run the risk of being canceled on Facebook or YouTube. And that's why we had to go on multiple platforms. And then just to weigh in on a couple other things. Candace, thanks for tuning in, Candace. But why hasn't he been fired? Oh, yeah, he's a Democrat. Yeah, you guys have to understand that's kind of the point of this is ABC sent Muir out to do that. He didn't act alone as the lone gunman. They gave him his marching orders, and he was not a journalist. He did not. He just read the company's lines, just like somebody who's giving a speech. It's ridiculous.
There's no difference. He and Kamala Harris, no distinction between them that night.
Right.
I just got to say too. I mean, Petro, thanks for watching. I think this guy could bench press both of us, Jason.
He looks tough.
Yeah.
Although
you know what they say that the more testosterone you have, the more conservative you become. So thanks for watching, Petro. And then Kevin Birdwell, Trump 2024. I hope that was a typo. 1,000-year Trump reign. We could be good with that too.
Yeah, it's funny. That was one of Will Tanner, one of our partners on the American Tribune, our website. He's doing a lot of exploration into different leadership structures over time. And it's I've kind of landed on, okay, so maybe we go Donald Trump turns over to Don Jr. and then goes to Barron for a while. Just 40 years or so. It doesn't need to be 100.
I know, Jason. We don't want to get blackpilled. We have a lot to get back on Springfield. But when you look at democracy, we are a constitutional republic. Nobody understands that. You want to have 50 sovereign states to comprise the United States. That's how it was designed. That's certainly not what we are anymore. Democracy, though, when you talk to people in the streets or you watch these videos on the internet, you realize that a lot of people out there probably don't deserve to vote. And we're not just talking illegals, and we can get to that at the end of the show, too. But we're talking about citizens. There needs to be a test. And we've talked about some of the other requirements that we want to have for voting. But pure democracy with the state of the American civic body right now, it's not a good sign. We are in the wrong form of government, given the kind of people that make up our country right now.
Well, and it's all right. I'm gonna go into this stuff, and we'll get back to Springfield. I promise. That's part of the fun of doing this.
It's our live show. We can talk about what we want.
We can talk about what we want. So Kamala Harris on her big platform is she's going to get involved in grocery prices, and she's going to get involved in housing and get the government involved in that and having housing stuff, giving money out to taxpayers for first-time home buyers. First of all, you're taking somebody else's money and giving it to other people. That's bad. Elizabeth Warren did the same thing. She was talking about or Bernie Sanders, if we just tax the ultra rich more, then we can all have stuff. So you're literally running your campaign, and I'm going to take money from one group and give it to another group. And we've set up a structure where people can vote for that. Folks, that's not American. That's not how we were founded. That was never how we were founded. But back to Kamala, one of the biggest accomplishments they had in their first term is they put all this money in EVs, and they had to build infrastructure and charging stations. Todd, do you remember how many charging stations they built for $1.4 billion or whatever the number was?
I don't want to get fact checked, but I think it's 8.
It was 8 or 9.
Yeah, we got to.
That's all they built for billions of dollars. And then the other thing they were doing is they put, I can't remember the number, I should have it in front of me, millions or billions of dollars into rural broadband. Todd, how many citizens have been connected to the rural broadband that
Don't
they
fact check me, but I'm going to say 0.
Right now, their official reports say 0. So their 2 biggest initiatives that they launched last year. Now, honestly, Todd, if somebody gave you $1 billion and put you in charge of getting rural broadband and stuff set up, how long would that take you?
Well, I would have gone to Elon Musk's Starlink. It would have cost me, I don't know, 50 million. I'm just making a number here. And I would have saved all that taxpayer money.
Literally.
There's already something in place. Government doesn't have to pay people to go dig new trenches for fiber optics. There are already satellites in space. Use those.
Right. So we're going from a place where the government's shown, I mean, they have all these infrastructure bills, right? Do you still have potholes in your roads? Like, have you seen bridges be replaced?
I see construction happening all over, and I see it happening every year. I don't see them fixing anything. I see them just doing the worst possible solution so that they can guarantee a job next year.
Right. And this just keeps happening and happening and happening. And people, like, government is the worst arbiter of our money and the worst thing to get things done. And Kamala Harris is running this campaign on, let's get government involved in more stuff. That'd be great. I'm like, it is ridiculous.
Well, and can I segue back to Haiti now? We have government involved in these NGOs and these charitable organizations that help resettle poor refugees that are facing so much in their home countries. Hundreds of millions of dollars siphoned into these non-government organizations, which de facto government organizations. They can call themselves non-government. They are government entities because they are funded entirely by your taxpayer dollars. We're talking about resettling hundreds of thousands, millions of people. And as we break the info down in Springfield, Jason, there is so much money flowing. There are 20,000 Haitians flowing into the city. There are millions of dollars flowing into the city in the pockets of certain individuals.
Right. Well, we should get back to that. So back to our Springfield story. It breaks a little before the debate. Muir sets up a hit. He's trying to fact check Trump. Everybody's talking about debating whether or not Haitians are eating cats and dogs. When the real story, if you're a real news investigative organization, you'd be saying, like, holy cow, the facts are this is a town of 60,000 people that was struggling. They moved 20,000 Haitians into here. And in the Rumble only part, we're going to show you living conditions in Haiti. Folks, it is beyond third world. Like, if you have third world country in your mind, Haiti's worse than that. And if there is possible, I can't say what they're eating down there, Todd, but you won't believe it.
On Rumble, you can find out what they're eating.
On Rumble, you can find out. It was funny. I found the video I wanted to show, and one of our partners I mentioned earlier, Will's like, you cannot play that video on Facebook. And I'm like, oh, you are no fun. And he's like, we don't want our Facebook pages blown up. But anyway, so Rumble only, you'll tune in. But so there's a million stories to tell. There's stories of corruption, the impact on the communities, and the media is not telling that. None of the mainstream media is digging into any of that. They're all just like, Trump's a liar, the dogs, nobody's eating the dogs, nobody's eating the cats. And here's the thing. Should we play the clip of the mayor?
Jason, this is a Republican mayor, just for what it's worth.
City at all for any kind of meeting or communication?
We've not heard anything to my knowledge from...
Okay, how about the Harris campaign?
Not heard anything from them.
Are they coming? Is Trump coming here for a town hall?
I've had other reporters say that he said he would. I think it would be very difficult for Springfield to receive any national political leader right now campaigning here.
Would you ask Trump not to come?
I would say it would be overwhelming for Springfield to have either of the political leaders running for office for the presidency to come to Springfield.
He doesn't want national attention in his city. What does that make you wonder? And we got receipts too, so I'll tell you what it makes you wonder. He said a visit from Trump would be a strain on the city. Jason, do you think 20,000 illegal, I can't call them illegal because the Biden administration gave them temporary status, so they're here legally.
You should explain that.
Yeah, let me finish my point, and then let's explain what the Haitians are classified as. He said that Trump would be a strain, but 20,000 Haitians that bring in whatever culture you want to describe, not American, into the city. That's not a strain, but a Trump visit would be a strain. And yeah, Jason, to your point about Haitians are not illegal, folks. We get the narrative all the time of all the illegals in the country coming across the border. Joe Biden carved out an exception, and I think I got to find this clip. It's not just Haitians. It's like 15 countries, the worst places on earth, like Syria and Venezuela and Haiti, Somalia, the people you absolutely do not want in America. They are carved out special status. I think they're called temporary refugees or temporary visa. They're here legally. They get, on paper, 18 months to work and live and just be part of the American dream. I don't know about you, Jason. I think 18 months is on paper. It is not in real life, because I don't know who's holding them accountable to be like, excuse me, Javier from the Venezuelan prison, you overstayed your 18 months because we tracked so many people down. But Haitians are here. They're here legally. They were flown in intentionally by the Biden administration to communities that did not ask for them, that do not want them, that cannot support them, that are struggling to make ends meet without them. And then they look around at their new Haitian neighbors getting all sorts of government bennies that we're going to break down in just a second here too.
Well, yeah, and here's what to understand, folks. As much as we want to help the whole world to make it a better place, the fact of the matter is America only has so much space, resources, money. I think that should go to our American citizens first. And the notion, on paper, the notion of relocating people from third world Haiti into America, like the part of you that wants to be charitable and goes to church on Sundays, like, oh, that'd be great. The pragmatist of you is like, well, first of all, do these people want to live under our societal norms? Like, has anybody explained what the rules are in America? Like how we live, how we function. Two, like, how many are we going to take, and what's the arbitrary number? Like, if we take 5,000, 10,000, 100,000, a million, like, clearly there's a number for how many you can afford. And then three, what's the plan to like integrate these people into communities? And I grew up outside of Rochester, Minnesota, and there was a huge Hmong population that was immigrated in through a lot of Catholic charities or Christian charities. The CIA used them in the war in Vietnam. That's a whole nother podcast. But when they brought them over, they had done a pretty decent job of saying, hey, here's life in America. Here's the social norms. Here's what you need to do. Like, do you want to be a Christian? Rah, rah, rah. And they came in wanting to assimilate with America. And they weren't promised much free stuff other than baseline subsistence. And like the Hmong Americans that I engage with now, 30, 40 years later, they're some of the best Americans. They like go to church. They're devoted to family. They are appreciative of what America did, giving them an opportunity. All they wanted was a chance. They weren't looking for free government handouts, any of those things. And these people that were relocating from Haiti, none of that happened. And it's god awful.
Yeah, and it's temporary protected status. So that sounds really nice. They get a protected status when they're in America, allegedly eating your pets. Yeah,
right.
These people have no interest in assimilating. And Jason, we do need to talk, I think, talking about the history of the immigrant coming to America. Whatever you believe or think about that, today, I would wager 99% of the folks coming here illegally do not care about our norms, our customs, our culture, our values. They were told that they could come find a job and improve their life, worship themselves as they're here. They are not going to change or sacrifice or do anything different. We're at the point where the only correct answer is 0. You might be a wonderful person. You might have a great family. You can be a good person and have a wonderful family in your home country.
Yeah, and
not a bad person for saying that. We need to change the narrative. You are not a bad person if you say the correct answer is 0, and all these good folks here can go home too.
Well, and that is such a pivotal point for people to understand. The deal for immigrants that come to America historically before the last 20, 30 years was, here's life in America. Here's what life's like. Here's our social norms. Here's how things work. There was a point you had to pay to come to America, where if you wanted to get in, you had to write a check, and we gave you nothing for free. Those stories you hear about my grandpa came here with a nickel in his pocket and a will to work hard. Those guys got zero money coming here. Like, they had to pay to get in, and they had to look at society. Now, you're still freedom of speech. You can practice your religion, but overall, like, there's certain social norms that you adapt to. These folks aren't sold that. They aren't told, like, hey, here's how this works. They're told, do you want to come to America? Here's a bunch of free stuff. Oh, by the way, vote for Democrats as soon as you're able.
Jason, when I lived in Peru for a year, I taught English down there. Had I gone down there and said, listen up, Cusco, like, this is how we're going to do things now. I'm an American. We're going to do all things American. I don't care about Semana Santa. I don't care about your customs with the Inca. Like, we're doing it my way now. I would have been called a white supremacist colonizer so fast. You know that they don't stand for anything because, yes, that would probably be inappropriate. I mean, it wouldn't even cross my mind to go change Cusco. I went to Cusco because I wanted to be part of Cusco heritage. I didn't want to, I was getting away from McDonald's and corporate culture in America. When they come here, though, and they don't label these people as colonizers or Haitian supremacists, like, they just hate this country and they hate you. They hate everything you stand for, value. It has nothing to do with, white people colonize. Like, remember hundreds of years ago when Columbus and Europeans came over, they colonized the indigenous communities. I am trying to find something that's different now with all the tens of millions of illegals coming into this country, colonizing America. Now they have nothing to say about that. It is simple hatred for European ancestry. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, now we got to get back to the Springfield story. Shout out to Fally. Fally's the only one over on the chat. Facebook chat's always so much more active than Rumble. Mayor is a rhino. We're going to talk about that. And folks, if you haven't figured out, establishment Republicans are worse than Democrats in many cases. And then Fally keeps you're going to try to drag me into eating your pets, taking over apartment buildings in Colorado. We're going to get into that on the Rumble only section. We can't cover that on the Facebook section. So, yeah. Anyways, so everybody can look. The mainstream media knows there's a hit. Clearly, there's a million stories to be told about what's going on in Springfield. This mayor, as a Republican, doesn't want the Republican presidential candidate to show up. Clearly, something's weird's going on. So we actually went to work, and we're going to show his tweet thread, too. We're going to start with another Twitter thread, though, where we're like, we know there's crooked stuff, and we know somebody's going to dig into what's going on. It's just a matter of figuring out who or what or how. So we found this Twitter account called Stained Haynes, which is like an independent content creator. And he starts with, here's the scam. The mayor of Springfield, Ohio is making millions by replacing a third of the population in his town with Haitian immigrants. Let's take a look. And he made this amazing Twitter thread that breaks everything down. He's got graphics and all that. So it turns out, the story goes, the mayor of Springfield owns a bunch of rental properties. And these Haitians that were getting moved into Springfield, he was able to slowly start kicking out residents of Springfield and charging 3 or 4 times more money to the Haitians because they were refugees. He was able to put up to like 20 people in a house and have them sleeping on cots and get like $400 a crack for these people a month. So it was all part of the negotiated deal. Like they could bend the rules on the housing because they were housing immigrants. So if you're renting a house for $2,000 to a family of 4, you could kick that family out. You could throw 20 Haitians in there at $400 or $500 a thread. Todd, does it make sense?
Oh, it makes absolute sense if you're a corrupt politician. And if you had to charge the market rate to a native Springfield family, let's say, okay, the going rate is $800 a month for this unit. There you go, family of 4. Haitians come in. Remember, they get all sorts of benefits handed out to them. So if you own that property, you can charge whatever you want because it's not the Haitians paying rent. It is the U.S. government or the NGOs, since they like to have their little separation there. Suddenly, that same apartment might cost $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. The Haitians don't care what it costs because they're not paying the bill. You as the rental property owner are thinking, I'm printing money at this point because the U.S. government, they might be $35 trillion in debt, but they're never going to run out of money to pay my rent. So now you're making a ton of money and you can charge per head in that apartment. And then, Jason, I thought this was interesting, and I'm going to couch this and say allegedly here. Allegedly, this guy also had his properties appraised at a lower value than they were worth. This is one of the threads. This is one of the tweets that disappeared on the thread. He didn't want to pay as much in property taxes, so he had his values appraised lower than the market rate. And I don't know about you, but I've been reliably told that cheating on those appraisals is it's a felony if you're running for president. So I don't know what that makes him.
If your name is Trump, it is a felony. But Todd just brought up an interesting point. He's live screen sharing. So as we were getting ready for the show today, I found this Twitter thread, and shout out to Stained Haynes. And like everything he had, I was trying to fact check and I was going to research, and I was like a third of the way through the thread. And I'm like, wow, this all checks out. Like, these are real screenshots. These are real. He has real pictures of the property lists that the guy owns. So like most people don't know, you can go like on the city website and look up an address and see who owns it, like the whole thing. Guy did a great job, had a bunch of receipts. We have another Twitter thread we're going to reference too that Will Tanner on our team made, kind of explaining how this immigrant thing works. But this morning when we went to pull up this Twitter thread, Todd, what happens when you click on Stained Haynes' account?
Here, let's try that, Jason. So here we are. This is the opening post, and then you click on his profile, and uh-oh.
Ha! So the guy that broke the big Springfield story, he had highly sourced sources, and I can't verify the validity of it, and I wish we had a media that could do it. And so, like we said, all this stuff is allegedly, but we're going to cover it on our podcast. The guy's account was temporarily restricted.
Jason, one thing I will note, let me go back to this page. Do you see any community notes on this post?
No.
Usually on Twitter, I think Twitter does a fair job. The community notes, or you get fact check, like not on everything. But if this were a problematic thread or a problematic tweet, one would think step one would be to deny it and say, here are links to actual sources that rebut the claim of the author. But I don't see that here. Instead, what I see, Jason, and I think what you were insinuating, is that this guy is flying way too close over the target. His receipts are hitting too close to home, and they're showing you the corruption that's taking place in Springfield, and extrapolate that out. If it's happening in Springfield, it's happening everywhere you get an influx of immigrants. He was doing too much good work, and I don't know if it was bots or if it was people clicking and reporting him, and Twitter's automatic system was like, oh, we got to shut you down temporarily to make sure what's going on is, legit. I smell foul play. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I think it's funny. So a lot of this stuff that you expose, and it's funny because, people call things disinformation, misinformation, but here's an important point to understand. If we had a real media, the story that the Springfield mayor is making millions of dollars off of these immigrants, there are firsthand reports. We can't verify them. That's why we're not showing them on here, of people that claim they were removed from their rental property. And it's not just the mayor, it's all the elite Republicans in the town. So all that country club Republican that we all know to not like so much, rhinos, if you call them, they were in on it. So they went up to the business leaders, it appears, and said, hey, we're going to bring all these people in. We're going to give you government money and you can charge whatever you want. So they're sitting there like, hey, do I have a Springfield resident, which Springfield is struggling financially? Like, these people are probably having a hard time paying their rents. So do I rent this house for $1,500 a month out to a resident, knowing, oh, they might be behind and it's going to be tougher? Do I just kick them out and throw in 20 Haitians at $500 a head? Like, pretty simple math if you don't have a soul, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, if you have no scruples or morality, it's a very easy decision.
Right. So now we know the mayor and the Chamber of Commerce, okay, they're getting rich off the property stuff. Now, the next question that comes up is, the other narrative that's come out is like, oh, well, Springfield needed workers and Haitians were going to work. So should we switch over to Will Tanner's thread? So Will Tanner, for those who don't follow him, at Will_Tanner1, he's one of our partners on the American Tribune. Smartest guy, isn't he, Todd?
He is smarter than all of us combined, Jason.
It's ridiculous. Like, we work with these smart people. He does a Substack. If anybody's checked out our www.theamericantribune.news, Will gets to that. Oh, Brenda.
Oh, I had to pop. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jason, but this was such an important question. Is DeWine in all of this as well? Yes. Do you think DeWine is a mega Republican, or is he the guy that loved what was happening during the pandemic as much as Gavin Newsom and Joe Biden? I think that is your answer there. This guy is just as bad as, what's his name, Rob Rue, or yeah, he is definitely involved.
Right. And so what you have to understand with these rhinos, and we use the term rhino. I mean, I don't even want us to call ourselves Republicans anymore.
I don't identify as a Republican at all. They can keep that name. As far as I care, Republican is just as tarnished as Democrat.
Right. The problem is that Republicans, like, they are your people. They're the people in Springfield that sold out their town residents for money.
The rural, and Springfield votes Trump, I would have to guess. All these rural communities do. They sold out their base down the river because they have an R on their name. And, well, that's a separate issue about primaries, but I know we want to get back to this, Jason.
Yeah, so back to the thread Will put together, and he addresses some Springfield stuff, and he actually has some screen grabs from the one thread. But one of the narratives you hear come out is like, well, Springfield didn't have enough workers, and so the Haitians, and they have these business owners coming out like, Haitians are great, they never call in, they show up for work, blah, blah, blah. And it was funny, I'd thrown it at Will, and like, oh, you need to make a thread on this, and he does a really good job of explaining complex things to simple people. And the meme he picked was the immigrants are lazily collecting all the welfare, but also taking all the jobs. So if you scroll down to the next tweet in the thread, it really addresses the Springfield issue, which is recent reports show what's going on in Springfield. The 20,000 Haitians didn't just randomly show up in Springfield. They were attracted there with job postings from NGOs, showed only to Haitians, brought into town by the NGOs, supported in lifestyles by the NGOs, and told to work for low wages, relative American wages provided by these jobs, supporting the gobs of NGOs. So to explain this in English, these non-government organizations, a lot of them started out as Christian organizations, went into the third world and said, hey, how would you like to work in this factory in Springfield, Ohio? By the way, calling out the Rumble thing, you're living in abject poverty, beyond poverty. It is ridiculous. And with that, so you go up to these people in these countries and say, hey, how would you like to go to Springfield? The non-government organization, who, by the way, they are funded almost exclusively by the government. So it's just an arm of the government. Will move you to Springfield, will put you up in a house, which, by the way, you're living in a mud shack, and we'll let you work. That's the deal. You got to work. Now, for the business owners, this is where it gets really nefarious, is the business owners, instead of paying a Springfield resident a fair living wage, the business gets to pay them minimum wage. So a Springfield resident that looks at your job in your factory and says, I'm not doing that for $11 an hour or $7 an hour. The dude from Haiti says, well, I'll do it for $7 an hour. They don't know what $7 an hour is. And they don't have bills to pay because the government's paying for their food and their housing. So it's almost like we imported slaves. I mean, for a lack of a better comparison, it's the rich business owners are getting super duper cheap labor. Now, if we scroll down to the next thread, and then I'll let you weigh in on this, Todd. So the people who are facilitating this scam are people like Marvina Twig, who is the president and CEO of the Youth Advocate Program. She is a social worker, and she made $1.2 million facilitating recruiting Haitians to come work for slave wages while being put up on government houses for free. Todd, over to you.
I don't even know. I can't say what I want to say about her. Maybe I'll save it for Rumble, but like, this is exactly the face I would expect. I'll save it for Rumble. I don't want to get banned off Facebook, but can I just repeat what you said to stress this? $1.2 million of primarily taxpayer money. I mean, yes, it's from the government, which means it's from you and me, Jason. She's getting paid more money than I could ever imagine making in a year simply to ruin other people's communities. Do you think her hometown is getting ruined? Do you think she lives in Springfield, Ohio? Or does she live in a nice gated suburban community where there are not 20,000, let alone there's not 0 Haitians where she lives? She doesn't care, but she will ship them off to your community. Business owners, corrupt business owners get they're, like you said, slave labor and indentured servitude. They do just fine. If you own the rental properties, you're getting paid just fine. Everyone gets paid nice by the government teat, except for the local residents in Springfield, and she does not care about them at all. Awful human being. But we want more government. Jason, I keep going back to this. People are going to vote for Kamala Harris. And yes, if you vote for Donald Trump, you're not voting to eliminate government. I get that. But your worldview that says we need more government and Kamala Harris is going to be a great steward of that large government, like, this is what it produces. It doesn't produce utopia. It produces corruption.
And many of these people in on the scam were Republicans.
Yes.
And now the question came up earlier about DeWine. Can you scroll down 2 more tweets, Todd? Oh, no, actually the next tweet that, yeah, that one. So if you pull that one, Will makes an excellent point where he says it's really hard to overstate how expansive these groups are. Another involved in the Haitian invasion, the Haitian Bridge Alliance, Oilfield Rando, great follow on Twitter, by the way, pointed out, they've gotten millions of dollars of funding in recent years, a great deal from George Soros to resettle Haitians in America. The website says the Haitian Bridge Alliance is a 501c3 nonprofit that advocates fair and humane immigration policies with particular focus on Black, Haitian, women, LGBTQIN survivors of torture. So these guys are making huge money sending it in. These are all receipts. You can go read it on Twitter for anybody doing it. And then the next tweet thread kind of brings it home on the DeWine. It says the NGO aspect of mass migration is important because the NGO aspect is important because it's how the migrants, legal and illegal, can afford to work all day for minimum wage. As Doug Mackey case points out, they're paid a few dollars an hour for the work, whatever the real number is. And they're being supported by the equivalent of dozens of dollars an hour in NGO and government money. So instead of paying $20 an hour to an American citizen or the full $30 it really costs to employ a Haitian, the business is paying $9 an hour. And DeWine is in on it. He knows. And this was actually a call out from somebody from DeWine where DeWine said, we need all these people because they're working. And he's like, yeah, it's somewhat right. We can't get people in the door where I work for $16.75 an hour. So he outsourced to a temp service who uses Haitians. The Haitians get everything the government is handing out plus a salary, while citizens can't survive on the starting pay. So to understand how this works, and this is important to share because your Democrat friends especially are going to be like, well, they're working. So, okay, you go to a third world country and you say, hey, how would you like to come to America? We'll pay for your food and your lodging. We'll pay for your airfare to get there. You just have to go work for minimum wage in these things. Minimum wage to a Haitian, that's more than they make in a year. I saw a stat, don't know if it's true, but it was like an average Haitian makes $1,700 a year. So if you tell them like, hey, you're going to make $7 an hour, they think they're a multimillionaire. And then the businesses get in on this who are largely Republican because instead of paying a citizen of Springfield $16, $18, $20 an hour, plus you got to pay Social Security, which is another 6% on top of that. It costs probably $5, $10 an hour just to employ somebody. So instead of paying the real cost to an American citizen of $30, you're paying $8 an hour or $9 an hour, whatever the number is, to a Haitian. The only way that can work is because the government is paying for all their living expenses. So, Todd, I'm old enough to remember.
My head, Jason. Yeah.
I'm old enough to remember when slavery was bad. When you brought somebody as an indentured servant into this country and said you signed them to a horrible contract, said, hey, we'll pay for your room, board, and whatnot. You just have to work in the factories for dirt. And
I'm told that I owe reparations to certain communities because of that practice. But now in 2024, we are openly celebrating it.
Right.
Aside from the fact that they get a salary, I see no difference. I'm going to pluck you out of your homeland. I'm going to bring you over here. You're going to do what I say. And that includes up to voting Democrat, by the way. How is that any different? Maybe you're not. And yes, it is different in some ways. We're being facetious, but in a lot of ways, these people are just getting used and abused for their labor. At the end of the day, they're getting used for their labor. And it is beyond corrupt. Everyone that wants more government intervention. This is why the minimum wage should be zero. Let an employer and an employee negotiate the salary. But this is also why then illegal immigration and integration in general needs to be curbed, because you will always get this. But at least if you get government out of the picture and say, look, we're not going to subsidize your low wage with benefits and housing and food and per diem and whatever else, medical care, of course they're going to hire the cheaper labor. So I love the thread, Jason, because the left thinks they got you. Oh, look, they're lazy, but then they steal your jobs. Like, it's actually a little bit of both. Both can be true.
Well, and here's what's really fascinating too is we're calling out Republicans in these threads. And that next tweet down, that was the business owner that they had the video who said, yeah, the Haitians are great. They show up for work and rah, rah, rah. Well, the Haitians know if they don't show up for work, they're going to kick them out.
They're going home.
The NGO that brought them here, that signed them up for the deal, the lady who made $1.2 million, they're going to send them home if they can't, if their employer says, oh, no, like they're doing a bad job. You know, this guy's not showing up for work. So, yeah, if you're a Haitian, like you signed on to be an indentured servant, essentially, things we thought we got rid of a couple hundred years ago, except now you're working for Republican business owner who's like, this is great. And Republican business owner, I'll be honest, he's like, this is the greatest thing ever. These Haitians show up, they listen, because they're at threat of being deported by the NGO if they don't show up to work the crappy job for $7 an hour.
Yeah, this one's a really small print. I got to read this one though, but here's just you're imagining they say this. My community was in bad shape, i.e. Springfield, lots of social problems. So rather than fixing those problems, we just brought in 20,000 Haitian welfare cases and hoped maybe 40 or 50 would be good workers. Like, that's the game they're playing. They don't need all 20,000 to be productive. They just need to have enough to fill some of the vacancies in factories and other menial jobs. The rest of them, you could leech off the system, go into someone's backyard for dinner, like, does not matter to them.
Right.
And
well, and it's interesting, shout out to Fally, who kind of underscores what's happening. Fally's originally from New York. She's been living in Montana for 32 years. We have more people of color than ever before. Wouldn't be a problem if they weren't getting all the housing. One of the biggest complaints in America is housing costs have gone up. Why have housing costs gone up in Springfield, Illinois? Because we brought in 20,000 Haitians, and we're paying the landlords thousands of dollars in government money to house these people. If you think about it, across America, estimates are, since Joe Biden's been president, 20 million people have come in. Maybe it's 10, maybe it's 15, maybe it's 20. Nobody knows the real number. But yeah, if you throw 20 million people who are all living in rental properties into all these markets, what's going to happen with housing costs?
I don't even know if leftists or most Americans understand supply and demand anymore. That's how bad the education system is. So, but Jason, this is where the media gets us off tracks again. Like, who cares if it's 10, 15, or 20? Whatever number we agree on or argue over, like, that is too many. So the media will spend its time focusing on energy like, no, Donald Trump said 20, it's only 10. Like, no, that's not the argument we're having. The argument is like, there are too many people in this country. I don't care what number you tell me. There are too many people here. They are driving up housing costs. They're driving up medical costs. I don't even think we have time to get to the story about Minneapolis's, one of their biggest hospital systems, about what is driving up costs there. But again, they distract you from the issue. Oh, Donald Trump's talking about cats and dogs getting eaten. Like, no, the big issue is that you have 20,000 Haitians in Springfield. And again, nobody wanted them. They can't support them. And we're just watching the money funnel go into the pockets of all these corrupt politicians.
Right. And then Barbara jumps in with the real reason.
Yeah.
Harris is trying to fast track them citizenship to vote. So here's what you got to understand, and I got to be careful how I phrase this. We've talked about on this podcast how easy it is to register to vote in Minnesota. The only thing stopping an illegal immigrant from being able to vote is marking yes on a form. The form says, are you a citizen? Yes, no. If you mark yes, you get registered to vote. They send you a ballot in the mail. You can fill it out and send it in. Now, if you think about it from an illegal immigrant perspective, so if you vote Republican, you are going to be removed from this country and your free money shut off. If you vote Democrat, they're promising you more free money, plus you will bring more of your friends and family into town, and will continue to pay for them to live here. So if you're going to vote, are you going to vote Republican or Democrat? You're going to vote Democrat. Now, understanding the stakes are, if President Trump gets elected, he's promised to have you removed. Whereas Kamala Harris is like, no, we're going to let more people in. So do you think we're creating an incentive for them to potentially break the law? which, by the way, we already know they kind of broke the law coming into the country. Yeah, I mean, people operate in self-interest. And so if you say, yeah, you mark yes, you get a ballot. Well, yeah, some people are going to mark yes. When you get the ballot, it's like, okay, I can fill out this form and potentially break the law, or I can run the risk of getting deported. Which are you going to do, Todd?
Let me think about that. And Jason, I found it. So we talk about how bad Minnesota is. Andy No on Twitter is pointing out that Oregon, even though under state law, non-citizens are prohibited from voting in national or local elections, in Oregon, they don't even give them a choice to check the box. It says Oregon has allowed non-citizens to obtain driver's licenses since 2019, and the DMV automatically registers most individuals to vote when they obtain identification. It is like we rag on Minnesota because we're here, but most blue states, I would wager at this point, just want you registered to vote. They do not care if you're a citizen or not. And yes, it's to get them to be citizens to vote. But even before they become citizens, Elon Musk has talked about this a lot. They're counted in the census. They're counted in the population. So if Oregon, Minnesota, wherever it may be, all these blue states that want to get more power, they can have larger representation in Congress. They can have more electoral votes in the presidential election because every single person, illegal, legal, or otherwise, is counted just the same. It is a numbers game for them, pure and simple. The more people that come into California, Oregon, the better, because now there's more electoral votes to be won. There's more House seats to be apportioned out.
Truly remarkable, isn't it, Todd?
It's remarkable that people can't see this. We're not using the R word today, Jason. We've been really good. I'm saying this out loud, and as I'm saying it, I'm like, this is so obvious. I can't believe I have to say it, but that's where we're at right now.
Right. And here's what's sad, that we don't have a real news media, because I don't know about you, if 60 Minutes said, we're going to go expose the mayor for how many rental properties he has and how rich he's getting, or if CBS says this guy who owns this construction factory, we're going to show that. We're going to say, like, holy cow, for 1,000 immigrants, you hope to get a handful of good workers. And we're going to expose the lady who gets 1.2 million for working with George Soros to help bring in Haitians up in them. Like, all these would be excellent episodes if we had a real investigative news media. And it's funny because that's why we're going to do a show every day or every other day, because we want to help spread this word. And like I say, we've kind of ragged on Republicans today. I think the NGO lady's a Democrat, but like, these are corrupt Republicans, that country club.
But at the end of the day, the reason, so why this rhino mayor said, I don't want Trump to come here, it's too much national attention, it'd be a burden on the city. He doesn't want to lose access to the corrupt, it's all part of the establishment game. Democrat, Republican, that's why Jason and I have been saying this entire episode, for the entire podcast duration, over a year now, they're birds of a feather. They all enjoy these corrupt relationships, business, government, NGO, immigrants in this case for businesses. It's all the same thing. Donald Trump is smashing that to pieces. He's an outsider running on the America First agenda. He is not a Republican, as Jason and I refer to the rest of these guys as Republicans. But He doesn't want Trump coming there. He doesn't want national attention there because they might dig into it. And right now it's just on Twitter and that account got banned. He doesn't want anybody finding out about this, though. That is all it is.
Now, we should share, we got about 5 minutes left in this show. We should share a couple clips from the plot twist. Last night, I went to see my grandbaby, which grandbaby's doing great, by the way. And I got home and I saw, holy crap, Vivek Ramaswamy, who's actually from Ohio. And I like Vivek. I don't know about all stuff. I know he's in the pharmaceutical industry. But Vivek showed up in Springfield. I didn't know he was going, Todd.
I didn't know he was going either. Yeah, I was surprised to see that.
We got to share a couple clips from that, and then we're going to wrap up. And then, folks, we need to go into the second hour where we're talking about what these people are living in Haiti.
Yeah, and just to set up the video, if you're wondering why is Vivek doing this, why isn't the mayor having a town meeting? Why isn't the city council having a town meeting? Donald Trump said he was going to visit Springfield in a recent rally. I hope he does. But here's Vivek swinging by and answering that same question.
One question. My name is Chrissy. You came here from your hometown. We have city officials that live right here in Springfield and have not set up a meeting like this for Springfield. You said your tickets were free, right?
Yes, they are. We're not making money tonight.
Okay, listen to me. But why can't the city officials, I'm serious, why can't the city officials do this? Go to the north, south, east, and west of Springfield, maybe get people that want to come, and find out what they're really living circumstances. And here's why. We're paying for those, right? I've been in Springfield for 66 years. I know a lot about Springfield, okay? So my take is, if you don't talk to people, even Haitians, I have Haitian friends too. I know all of them are over here illegal too. But what I'm saying is, this is a community. If you want to be open about things, talk to the people. Don't just make it seem like President Trump did.
All right, this is kind of long-winded and brutal. Let's get to Vivek's response. We understand what she's asking.
So I'll tell you what I think is actually going on. Okay, the first thing I'm going to say may not be very popular in this room, but I'll tell you the truth. Okay, this is what I truly believe, so I'm going to share it anyway. Actually, before I came here, I was in City Hall. I met with a number of the city officials. I invited them to be here tonight. Actually, I thought it'd be productive because I don't have the power other than through philanthropy or through public advocacy to change something here. And we'll try to use the power of, my platform voice to cause positive change here. But I invited them to be here because they're in a position to run the city. And I'll tell you what I believe. I know many of you may feel like your leadership doesn't care. I met with them. I don't think that's true. I think I sat there for an hour with them after we met with the Haitian group. I think they actually really do care, at least the subset I met with. And I know that's not a popular view maybe in this room. But I will tell you what I do see happening in the country. I think there's a culture of fear, actually. I think the reason they're not here tonight is not because they don't care about this. It's because they're scared, actually. And I think that culture of fear has spread like an epidemic across our country, where actually what you really need is just transparency. You report to the people. If you work in a company, how many of anybody in here work in a company, okay? Your CEO is the boss of your company. But people mix this up. When you're in government and you're a city official or you're a mayor or whatever, your boss is actually the people who are in this room today. And it's not just the people in the city who mess that up. That's the federal government as well. And so what I hope to do today is to show that actually talking to the people of Springfield isn't that scary. The way the town council meeting, somebody came up, will be demonized for speaking about their own experience. We're live streaming this for the world to see that actually these are just good, patriotic Americans who love their country and love.
My 2 cents, whether you wanted it or not, I agree with Vivek that most people, he didn't say it, I will. I think it's incompetence. I think it's a combination of cowardice and incompetence. Those are probably the most popular and most common traits among the American people. Cowardice reigns supreme. It is rare to have a fighter. That's why we admire Donald Trump so much. So yeah, I'm guessing they're city council folks, not overly intelligent human beings, just incompetent, bumbling fools. They're afraid of dealing with the ramifications of the policies that they might have rubber stamped or didn't understand, and now it's led to the disaster in Springfield. I don't think all of them are corrupt. I think we pointed out one of the individuals, the mayor. He certainly seems to be corrupt if all the reporting is true about his rental properties, about all the other connections he has. There are some people in positions of power that are abusing them. I think, like Vivek said, though, I can agree with that. It's not that they're all corrupt, evil Bond villains. They're just simply regular people that are just kind of run-of-the-mill and not spectacular. So they let this disaster unfold, maybe unwittingly, perhaps, but that's kind of where we're at. So now they're afraid to face the public.
I was going to say, too, so I'm through about half of this. I found it last night. I think the whole thing's like an hour and a half, and it is going to break your heart. These stories the Americans are telling. I mean, imagine your town that you live in, and all of a sudden, 2 out of every 3 people in town are somebody who are living for free in government assistance, getting free health care, free schooling. These people don't speak English. Ironically, we'll cover some of it in the Rumble part, but they don't even speak the same dialect of Haitian. Like, there's multiple dialects on the island. So in your kid's school, 1 out of 3 kids is somebody who has had no formal education that doesn't speak English. And your school now that already doesn't have enough resources to teach your kids, like no school has too many resources. Now they've got to figure out how are we going to integrate and teach these Haitians? And you can't have a Haitian only school because then you're racist. You got to let them into public schools, which Todd knows about. And, you know, you got to have like 2-3 translators. You got to have a translator in every room. Like, what a mess these either corrupt or incompetent politicians have. And as you watch this town hall, they go through that. There's some stories in there I saw about like they're eating the cats or eating the dogs, which we'll talk about more in the Rumble part. But it is, it's truly remarkable what happened to this town. And if we had a real media, we've just touched the tip of the iceberg. We'll continue to cover this. Go watch the Vivek interview. It's on his Twitter account. But we should probably wrap up and let people know what's really going on in Haiti.
We probably should, but I'm gonna wrap up this segment here on Facebook only. If you're done tuning in, if you're not able to make the switch over to Rumble or Twitter right now, thanks for tuning in. Marianne Williamson, we quoted her last week, Jason, Democrat presidential candidate, or former one, wasn't really allowed to primary against Biden because of democracy and all that. She made a great point, and I keep referring to this because it rings true for me. It is not about the memes so much about the cats and the dogs, or even the allegations of eating cats and dogs. Yes, that is a problem, but it captures a much larger problem that the elites simply do not care about your plight. The elites, Joe Biden specifically, sent 20,000 Haitians into Ohio, didn't care about the impact on the community, didn't care how the citizens of Springfield felt about it. He said, I'm sending 20,000 Haitians to Ohio via my NGOs and the hundreds of millions of dollars siphoned through, what was her name, Arvina, whatever that frumpy lady's name was, facilitating all this. They just don't care about you. That's it. Cat memes aside, eating them aside, the elites don't care about you. They don't care what happens to you. And I think that's the real story here. And good for Vivek for showing up to at least highlight some of this. And like you said, Jason, I'm going to finish watching as well. It is heartbreaking. That could be your town. I mean, that will be your town next if we allow this to continue. And you're going to wonder, you're going to be like, hey, I elected you to lead my community and take care of us. You sold us down the river and you feel helpless. And my heart goes out to them.
Well, we should probably buck out of Facebook, head over to Rumble. Now, we do get some questions too from people like, oh, how do I get in Rumble? Rumble's an app. Think of it like YouTube. Our channel name is The American Tribune. It's under the live tab. And you'll see, we actually got like 50 people over there watching live now, which is kind of exciting for us. So we will see you on the flip side on the Rumble only. Facebook, YouTube, we love you. We'll see you next Friday.